Well, hey everyone, I'm Trish Murray, and this is the New Age Tour Guide podcast. If this is your first encounter, you're joining me at the very beginning. This is the first official episode, and I'm gonna try and begin at the beginning. It already feels like a struggle because there has been so much that has led me to this place. Nonetheless, I am going to try and find a beginning point and focus on some overarching themes that I'm going to be bringing forward in through this podcast and possibly give you a bit of a baseline to help you determine what you're seeing of this new age already. Now, I need to say it for whoever needs to hear it. I'm not an expert on age-changing times. I don't even know if you can be an expert on that. I'm not an authority on navigating times of chaos like what we're living through right now. I'm not a coach, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor. I'm actually a strategist for soulful business owners. Now, I am speaking from my own personal experiences. What has been galvanized in me as I took periods of retreat to reflect and to really consider what I was seeing going on in my own corner of the world as well as in the world. And I'm sharing how I've come to view our world after processing about 1 million red pills and moving down 1 million more rabbit holes. Now, each of these podcast segments is going to have 3 to 4 minutes at the very beginning of video so that you can put a face to the name and the voice. But then I'm going to shift into a pure audio podcast because I really want to invite you to tune in. Tune in and listen for what you need to hear today without any distractions of, watching me or the crazy expressions that I make on my face when I talk. Now, with a few exceptions, the goal for these segments is to keep them pretty short and focused, about 10 minutes each. Now, there's going to be a few exceptions when I go a little bit longer, like when I do interviews with other people and inviting them to share their gifts and talents and insights. And I'm also going to release one new segment every other Sunday. And you can access those on my website at www.soulstyle.me, or you can find them on YouTube, Vimeo, or Telegram by searching New Age Tour Guide. Now, you're going to hear a little bit about the intention of this podcast in a moment, but the invitation is to shift your mind, prepare your heart, and be guided by your soul's wisdom to find your way into this new age. Okay, let's start with the language of the new age. I use it interchangeably with the age of Aquarius as shorthand to describe what I see unfolding in our world, in the macro context of our world, through these rapidly shifting social, economic, political, business, and spiritual landscapes. Now, you might be hearing different language, the language of ascension, the great awakening, the rising divine feminine, and probably 1,000 more labels or words or phrases that people are using. I think essentially we're all saying the same thing. At least that's what I've taken as I've interacted with and engaged with content around ascension and divine feminine and great awakening. They're all saying very much the same thing as what I mean when I say new age. So let's move on to the name. Now, there were the other names that I played with, so I'll share those with you here. As I was kind of just noodling this whole idea of doing another podcast, which I'll get into, some of those names were Tales of a Time Bender, Beyond the Edge, Red Pills and Rabbit Holes, and something maybe a little bit just more direct, like What the Fuck is Going On? The What the Fuck is Going On podcast. Now, as fun as that would have been, I really felt like I was going to continue to stumble over the words. It's too many words. Tales of a Time Bender would take too much explanation. Beyond the Edge was too vague. Red Pills, Rabbit Holes, again, would have been super fun, but it didn't have the energy that I was looking to bring into these conversations. So I was sitting at the beach one day this past summer, and I was trying not to think about all the reasons why I shouldn't be at the beach. So I was absent-mindedly just listening to the kids playing and the water and the birds and, just people laughing, having a good time at the beach. And New Age tour guide popped into my mind. I mean, I liked it immediately because it's a complete reflection of my core driver in numerology. And I like the idea of something that I was going to be working with having a name reflected by one core aspect of my soul style. So I wrote it down and I let it go, but it wouldn't go. It stayed and it popped up rather persistently for about 2 to 3 weeks afterwards. Now, the other side of this is that I was really on the fence about whether or not I was going to kick off another podcast. I have already done 3 podcasts under 3 separate labels. Why would I do another one again exactly? What combination of themes and topics and conversations would I put together for a new one? And how would it be different from where I have been and what I've been talking about? So I wrote it down. I pressed pause. I didn't think about it, but it continued to come back to me. And the words of Dolores Cannon really came into my mind quite strongly. She said once, probably multiple times, if it's your calling, it keeps calling. If it's your calling, it keeps calling. And so one aspect of my divine calling is communication. Now, yes, that definitely shows up in the work that I do in the marketplace, but this new podcast has a different feeling to it. It feels more like my creative expression. Now, I think the name will really start to speak for itself once we get rolling here. But for now, I wanted to do a conversation that really just focused in on the name, the language, and share 4 cornerstone themes that are going to kind of hold this podcast together. Cornerstone number 1, big picture, broad perspective. I'm going to be touching on the prophets and the prophecies that I found back in 2012, which initiated my current worldview that we are living through age-changing times. But there were also business books, which is actually more my wheelhouse than spirituality and New Age. Books like The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, Spend Shift by Michael D'Antonio and John Gerzema, and The Human Brand by Chris Malone and Susan T. Fisk. All of these and more will find their way into future segments because they are all talking about New Age truths, ideas, and shifts. Cornerstone number 2, ancient knowledge, timeless wisdom. We cannot talk about the New Age if we're not going to talk about spirituality. I'll share what I learned as I was studying yoga in the Hermetic tradition, and I'm also going to incorporate aspects of astrology, numerology, and human design, which I've spent time studying and working with in my business. But it's my personal belief that we're going to see more and more emphasis on these maybe esoteric, certainly, they've been branded as occult, this hidden knowledge. We're going to find more and more emphasis on this hidden knowledge coming into light, having the light shine on these hidden truths as we move forward because of the timelessness, the timeless truths that they carry. And it's truths that our world has almost completely forgotten about. But we also can't forget about the wisdom that is contained within the sacred traditions of Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and beyond. Now, there is one particular verse in the Christian Bible that I want to draw in because I think it plays really strongly into this intention that I'm creating around this podcast. That verse comes from the book of Proverbs, chapter 29 and verse 18, and it says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Where there is no vision, no understanding, the people perish. That's Proverbs 29:18. Like I said, there's a really deep connection to that particular verse and why I have decided to go forward with creating a new podcast, the New Age Tour Guide, because I believe that we are lacking vision as it relates to, where our world is going, what we want our world to become. And at the same time, I'm going to touch back on this in a moment, the vision that has been cast for us about the future, the vision that things like Hollywood movies have cast in our minds about what the future looks like. But the New Age isn't going to be influenced completely by the spiritual side. It's also going to be informed by fields of science, science like epigenetics, quantum physics, and the study of our brains. Anything that you see neuro in front of, I think is going to be leading us into this new age. Now, if you know Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, you're already going to be aware of some of the things that my guests are going to bring forward and share. Now, I think all of this is coming forward because the new age is ready for it. And because it's how the divine, God, the infinite source of all creation, how it is making us ready for the new age. Cornerstone number 3, new age, new ways. Now, over the first few segments, you're going to get a sense of how these cornerstones kind of feel. I'm going to really zero in on some things, but mostly you're going to see sort of a mashup of all 4. I have a couple of segments coming up very quickly that are going to go right to the heart of the age of Aquarius. Given that we're talking about the new age, I thought it would be helpful to go back to the source of astrology, the sources of astrology that really influenced my perspective on the age of Aquarius, and share, kind of where we're coming from, where we're moving towards, what the qualities and characteristics of that age look like. And I'm going to also really kind of speak a little bit about what I think is a bit of a hangover, right? Where there's some qualities and characteristics that are sort of hanging on that we really need to learn how to let go of in order for us to make this move forward. So remember when I talked about vision? The new age is breaking us out of the spell. I was talking about Hollywood, the spell that Hollywood has cast in our mind about our world, about human nature, and about what the future is going to look like. Well, I think we can let go of ideas of the Terminator and the Hunger Games. I think it's challenging us to let go of ideas of the Terminator and the Hunger Games. And it's challenging us to break those spells. We need to break those spells because the new age is going to require that we operate from our intuition, which is the power of our heart, architecting from our heart, and using the full power of our minds, our intellect. Cornerstone number 4, practice, processes, and progress. Now, at times we are going to talk about what we're seeing out there in the world. Because like it or not, Gandhi was absolutely spot on when he said, be the change that you want to see in the world. This new age unfolding isn't all play like Trivial Pursuit. Every single person on the planet right now has a unique, distinct, and vital role in bringing this new age forward. I want you to let that land. Every single person on this planet right now has a unique, distinct, and vital role in bringing the new age forward. Our participation isn't optional. It's essential. It's not a mistake that you are here at this moment in time on the planet. And how we bring that forward will really come down to our own personal decisions, our own individual choices and how we opt to play this sort of game of life going forward compared to where we have come from. We will need to change our personal practices in how we engage with each other and how we engage with the divine, God, the infinite source of all creation. We will need to change the processes for how we deal with stuff if we are going to make progress toward a vision of the future that isn't the Terminator and the Hunger Games. From my own personal experience, I can say with confidence that these age-changing times are going to touch on every aspect of our life, which is probably why it feels so completely overwhelming. We know something's going on. We might not have the words to describe it or even feel like we have a full scope of what it is, but we feel it. I got to 7 core categories that are going to go through a massive value shift in our world, from healthcare and education to business and government. That's big picture, but it's going to have a direct and indirect impact on our personal corner of the world, on our health, on how we make money, on how we support our family, on how we walk through life, feeling a sense of meaning and significance. And it's going to have a direct or indirect impact on how we relate to each other. If it feels like a lot, it's because it is a lot. We are living in age-changing times. What's transpiring on the planet right now is not business as usual. It's a reflection of all of the prophets and the prophecies, the books and the insights, and it is unfolding like the most complex game of chess that you could possibly imagine. There are a lot of moving pieces. And honestly, our job isn't to take it all in. It's to work through what we are becoming aware of and then consciously integrate new sources of wisdom and intel and insight so that we can actively engage, so we can be the change, so we can find our unique role and purpose in ushering in this new age and step into the vital part that each of us has to play in the plan. But remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I'm going to suggest that that's what we're doing here. We are building something new, something different. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in the blink of an eye. The divine God, the infinite source of all creation, is stepping us into this new age, 1 degree at a time. We'll all get there as a collective community. In that, I truly believe, where we go one, we go all. So shift your mind, prepare your heart, and be guided by your soul wisdom. Well, thanks for joining me for this initial conversation designed to set a baseline for the New Age Tour Guide podcast. It was a lot. And I'll come back with short, focused conversations that highlight, just as every good tour guide would do, all of the things that I've shared here and more. I'll give you the public tour along with a private tour of some of the things that you might not be hearing anywhere else. Now, I mentioned that the shift underway into this new age is a little bit like the all play in Trivial Pursuit. And one of the things that I got super curious about was my specific role in this whole big cosmic plan. If you're curious about your role, starting to decode the insights that are woven into your birth data using modalities like human design, numerology, astrology, this is a great place to start. You'll find a link below that can lead you to your soul driver's guide. This concise, comprehensive package draws on 4 powerful insights around what moves you at a soul level. Until next time, I'm Trish Murray, casting a vision for this new age for soul seekers navigating a rapidly changing social, economic, political, business, and spiritual landscape, one podcast at a time.